the Retro Gamers Podcast, episode 139. Larry here, and it's just me for now. Anthony is not with us this week. He is on travels, personal travels, all good to go, but he's unable to join this week. It's pretty funny. 2019, this calendar year, I think me and him have done more recording with other people than we have with each other. So, but that's no bad. That's no indication of anything, just the way things are. But this week I am joined by actually a friend of the show, actually someone who's been on the show before, the curator of the Rough Cut, and you can follow him on Twitter, on YouTube, Citizen G.
What it is, baby? What's happening, Larry?
What's going on?
What's going on, man?
How you doing?
Here we are again.
If I may use your Christian name, Mario.
Absolutely. Doesn't make a difference.
Citizen G, more 365. We're here.
Sometimes it's even Mr. Citizen. But whatever you want to go by, no problem.
So, how you doing? How you been?
Today's been an interesting morning. We had an interesting morning this morning. I've been pretty good.
Good.
Just keeping things on the down low right now. Not really too active lately as far as the social media presence, but that's okay. I've had a lot going on recently, and
it seems like a lot of stuff's been happening with all good. Well,
generally
some good.
It's fine. Yeah.
But real quick, where can they find you officially? With your stuff.
You can find me on WordPress for my blog at I think it's roughcut. Whatever, I forgot. I do have a Periscope page. You can find me at Citizen G or Mr. Citizen. What else do I have? Citizen
YouTube,
G at
your
YouTube.
YouTube?
Yeah, Citizen G. Just look that up, and I have a couple of little YouTube videos that I was playing around with. You can find it there. And I am on Spreaker. I think it's the Citizen G Show.
Okay.
I think that's what it's under. I always forget my web
Well, you're going to
addresses.
pick it all up again soon.
Quite
so.
unprepared. Yeah, no, I'm basically... like I said, some things, personal things in life tend to get in the way sometimes, and you don't have the time to do the things you want to do. And it gives me time to think, reflect, and maybe even revamp certain aspects of what I'm doing. And that's how you evolve, I guess.
Sounds good.
So,
and of course, here with the Retro Gamers, you can find us at Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, at Retro Gamers Podcast. We're going to pick up the Twitter account again soon.
Oh, wow.
I haven't figured out, or we haven't figured out maybe the rebranding of that name. But, of course, you can find us you can email us, email at theretrogamers.com. And, of course, please, for the Retro Gamers, for the Rough Cut, and for all the other shows, the Yin and the Yang podcast, the Better F podcast, Talking More Wrestling, 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. Please, it'll help us all to get our names out there. Now, this may be a bit of a shorthanded, a handheld version, as I like to call it, a shorter version of the show. Maybe we'll see. Epic last words. But we had some news coming out this week, and myself, and I know Anthony's aware of it as well. By the time we report the news, I'm sure everyone there has already heard it. But let's talk about it anyway. Especially because as the Retro Gamers tends to be Nintendo heavy, which is fine. We do have our resident, none of us are experts. We never said we're experts. But I have someone who knows more about Sega than me and Anthony would probably know of because, again, me and Ant grew up more Nintendo. Mario, you had more Sega.
I got a fairly rounded experience, but I was an owner of various Sega, early pre-Saturn Sega, which is the Master System, which is the Sega Genesis, the Sega CD. When they did the 32X, I kind of said... Yeah,
you and the rest of the country
getting a little silly, and but a lot of people there weren't a lot of Master System people around. I was a Master System guy, and definitely a Genesis. So we got news, and it seemed that Sega had released the next 10 games on their Mini.
Yes, the Sega Genesis Mini, the Mega Drive Mini for those of you in Europe and in Japan. So, and for those who maybe still are unaware of it, yes, there's like 6 or 7 Genesis Minis out there, but they're all by At Games, and every one of them has been a disaster.
A Chinese company, poor emulation, right? Sound chip issues.
I mean, and they even took. Look, I give them credit because they did take cartridges.
Yeah,
but even that didn't work out. I had one, just didn't work out too well.
It's kind of like that Retron 1 I have. It's a very cheaply made emulator. The intention is good, but when you generally it's a $34 system, but you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
All my games ran slow. The music was off. It was ugly.
It was ugly.
I wouldn't say ugly. I would say if you were like 4 years old and it was a Christmas present, you won't know the difference. You know, if you were there originally or you're still up to grade with better emulators, better systems, you know the difference. It's hard to miss.
Of course. But this is the one that Sega's putting out. Sega's like, hey, Ad Games, nice knowing you. Hit the bricks. And Sega is putting out their system. Ad Games has nothing to do with it. It does not take cartridges like all the other minis that have come out. This one will be basically 40 games, which I think is the most on one of these systems.
What was the NES? 30 games?
30
right?
games, then 20 on the Super Nintendo. The PlayStation has 20.
Wow. So
I mean, the Commodore
is,
64 has 64 games. I'm not going to count that.
We're not counting hackability, people. We're just,
No. So 40 games, and Sega has announced 30 of them. You know what? Let's take a moment. Let's.
I got them up.
Let's hopefully try and do this not in order, but in release order. Does it the one?
You want me to
have?
start? I'm on the site, and
oh, are you?
yeah. So
All
the
right.
first couple.
So I mean, we've already gone through the first
Okay.
20, but just real quick. Just rifle off the first 20 until you get to the new batch there.
So-
Do you know where the new batch starts?
I believe I do.
It should.
I believe it's.
Let me see your list.
I
What do you
believe it
got?
starts with that one. Because then
Um,
there's 9 games after that, so that should be the one.
oh yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Cool.
So all right. So what do we got here? Let me scroll back up here.
Scroll.
You've got Echo the Dolphin. You've got Castlevania Bloodlines, Space Harrier 2, Shining Force, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, Toe Jam and Earl, personal fave, Comic Zone, Sonic the Hedgehog 1, Altered Beast, Gunstar Heroes, Castle of Illusion, starring Mickey Mouse, World of Illusion, starring Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck, Thunder Force 3. I don't
remember. That may be 2.
I can't actually read this one.
Let me
Can
see.
you read this one? I can't read that. It's in goofy letters, and I'm going blind as it is.
What is that one?
Yeah, we have a mystery game.
Hold on.
here.
Let's accept your cookies. Wow, what game is that?
I can't read that to save my life. Can you read it now?
Super.
Is that Fantasy Zone?
Oh, it's Fantasy Zone.
Super Fantasy Zone.
Are you on the American version?
Yeah, why would I be on anything?
Oh yeah, you're on the American version.
Yeah.
That's just a weird. That's a weird looking
That's
box.
a great game. I had played that on the Master System.
It is Thunder Force 3, yeah.
Thunder Force
But
3.
Super Fantasy Zone.
That's a great game. And the Sega, and believe it or not, I believe even Turbo Graphics had a Fantasy Zone. Sega Master System had a Fantasy Zone. Nintendo had a good version of Fantasy Zone, from what I understand, too. I don't know if it was a legal one. All right, so we got...
get you a coaster.
Yeah. Oh, you want it on here. I see, I'm a barbarian. I put it anywhere. All right, so Super Fantasy Zone.
Yeah.
So Shinobi 3, which is an excellent game. Streets of Rage 2, Earthworm Jim, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Contra Hardcore Landstalker. Now we get to the next... The
new ones? All right, so let's start here. So we're going to go through them real quick. We'll touch on them if we know them. If we don't know them, hey, that's okay. So first up, and before I get into the new list, I have to... The praise I'm having for Genesis, with this Genesis Mini, is the third-party games that are coming out. I mean, just the fact that they have 2 Disney games on this mini system is shocking me.
You got to remember, too, they had the license from... Sega had the license from Disney at the time.
But back then. But now it's a little bit
that
like...
they're still able to,
yeah,
right?
Like the fact,
wow.
Because then why doesn't the Super NES Classic have Turtles in Time? You know what I mean? Like...
Yeah, and it has Castlevania on it.
Well, Castlevania, that's fine. But
Yeah.
I'm talking... You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So first up, and this isn't as much as a shock, but it's cool because you don't really see this game in North America too much. For some reason, a lot of repros.
Right.
But Mega Man, The Wily Wars.
Yeah. Now, this wasn't released at the time. Am I right?
Well-
what was the story with this? Because it's the first 3 Mega Man games upgraded to like 16-bit. Am I right? Is that what it is?
Not necessarily. Basically, what it is, it's the only Mega Man game on Genesis. It is remakes of the first 3 games that were originally released, correct? Yeah. But what I want to get at is it was only available in North America on the Sega channel.
Really?
So it was released physically in in Europe.
Europe, okay.
Like, Japan and PAL versions. But if you wanted to play this game, this was exclusive on that Sega channel that was probably around for me like a year or so.
And I would say out of the most recent games that they've released to the public, this was the most surprising. I don't think anybody saw that coming.
No.
I've seen a hard copy of this game in some of the retro stores, and it's fairly pricey. And, it always surprised me. I actually thought at first, because I didn't know the story behind that, I thought it was some kind of homebrew. But the fact that Sega was keyed in on this and knew what the community was looking at out in the brick and mortar shops, this stunned me. I think that's pretty cool. I'd love to see how this plays. I've never played it before. Have you?
No, I never have. Basically, it is like a remake of the first 3 games, but even that is still factored into the overall game. Like, Wily goes back in time. It's not just a compilation of 3 games. It's all part of a larger story.
Oh, wow.
So there's a reason for it, and there's some new levels. They take out some of the glitches from the NES games. Yeah. So this is a cool.
Arguably, a lot of people feel those first 3 games are the best.
Oh yeah,
the ones that have the longest, strongest legacy. And
next up, so going into this with this Genesis Mini, it comes with 2 Genesis 3-button controllers. Now, they're USB controllers, but they're 3-button controllers. So when that was announced and we saw that, we figured, okay, there's going to be no 6-button games.
Right.
Because you only have the 3 buttons.
Wow.
And then they announced Street Fighter II Special Champion Edition.
Yeah, Special Champion Edition. There were 2 Street Fighter II games released on the Genesis. Special Champion Edition was the first one, and then they released Super Street Fighter II.
Turbo?
No, just Super Street Fighter.
Turbo was on Super Nintendo, yeah.
And with that release was when the 6-button controller came out, which was all wonderful and good because Mortal Kombat also came out around the same time. They were almost in direct competition, like they were in the arcades.
Yeah, and the way the controller was designed, the 6-button controller was designed a little different than the 3-button, where even when you're playing a game that doesn't take advantage of the 6 buttons,
right,
the layout of the buttons, they were actually raised as opposed to like in the controller, you know what I mean? Like how that 3 buttons was set up.
It was not concave. It was a convex.
Yeah, it was
button.
like
smaller buttons.
It was a physical button. Yeah,
they were rounded out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
right.
Even the feel of it is good. So now, granted, you can play Street Fighter 2 with the 3-button controller.
What you had to do was basically set up if A, B, and C were your kicks. What would happen is you'd hit start and it would switch to punches.
Yeah.
And on one end, it made it a lot more challenging. On the other end, no, you just
it's just annoying.
You're supposed to play with 6 buttons, and I remember Mortal Kombat was pretty awful. If I remember without
that's
the 6
tough.
button,
Yeah,
without the 6-button controller, I think I don't even remember how it went.
Probably couldn't even play it. So now here's the thing: before this list was announced, this is straight from Sega's Twitter page. Before this was announced, a company who we've talked about in the past, I've bought some stuff from them, RetroBit, great website, retro-bit.com. They actually have a working they're actually working with Sega that they're putting out new controllers for these old systems.
Beautiful.
So you can buy brand new controllers officially licensed by Sega for your original Genesis, all the way up to Genesis and Saturn. I don't know if they're making Dreamcast controllers yet, but Genesis and Saturn.
The Saturn controller was the same. It was a 6-button.
It was designed differently.
Never owned a Saturn.
But they have the original ports. They have USB
pin
as well.
Input
Yeah,
was the same though,
They have
right?
that.
Like an Atari.
I think so.
Controller.
I think so. Probably not. I'm going to say no.
But you remember the inputs?
Yes. Yep.
Were the same as a
because you can use a Genesis controller on an Atari.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can.
So RetroBit is putting out these controllers. They're even putting out Bluetooth controllers for the original systems, which I think is kind of cool. Wireless
That's pretty
Bluetooth.
wild. Yeah. Wow.
But they announced before this list came out, they announced they're redesigning slightly their 6-button Genesis controller, and they announced that it will work with the Genesis Mini.
Beautiful.
So when I saw that, I'm like, wait a minute, why would they announce that when all these games, at first, I thought were going to be 3 buttons?
Yeah.
And then comes out Street Fighter 2. So, granted, you'll have to buy a new controller, but I think they're going to be like $15. It's not going to be a lot.
Yeah, from what I saw, they're not terribly expensive.
No, not at all.
And they're USB, so you can probably use it on your laptop.
Exactly.
And they're the Sega. I always found the Genesis 6-button controller, ergonomically speaking, was so comfortable.
That's what I meant before. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
All right. So up next, this one I feel like you either love this game or you despise this game.
Oh boy,
Sonic Spinball.
I never liked it.
You never liked it?
And you know I played it only when they started doing the collections on PS3 and stuff. That's when I first played it. And
oh, you didn't have it originally?
I never had that originally.
I did.
That was something I played later on. I never liked that game.
It was slow.
It was slow.
Literally. It was literally slow.
And maybe I'm just dopey, but I would get to a certain level, and I could not figure out what to do, where to go, or how to solve the problem.
It's
like the layouts.
Yeah, it can get a little.
I couldn't figure out what was going on.
Sonic Spinball is a pinball game, as it is, but it still have like an adventure element
like
to
an
it.
action adventure pinball.
But for a game like Sonic, where you're used to that blast processing, which was all hokey, but
that was
the speed of Sonic. Literally, the game ran slow. So it was kind of frustrating at times.
Definitely in comparison to the other games.
I
thought I remember being pretty fast. I mean,
I remember it just being slow. Maybe it was just the way the hardware was. Maybe that will change on this thing.
It was different. There was something, to me, off. It almost felt incomplete to me. I don't know.
I can see what you're talking about.
It wasn't one that I cared for. I think with the Sonic series, I think once I got to the third one, I was pretty done. Even then. But
up next, Phantasy Star 4.
Never played that.
Yeah, neither have I. Never played the Phantasy Star series.
It was, I think, wasn't a couple of them released on the PS3 and Xbox 360
Probably,
collection?
yeah.
So I had the opportunity. I never did. I was a Phantasy Star 1 person on the Master System that I did complete the game way back then using graphing paper to map out the dungeons and write down clues. I had notebooks full of this stuff when I was 10. But that was one of two forays into RPGs. The other one was Final Fantasy VII about probably 10 years later.
Yeah, which we're getting a remake on that, thankfully.
Yes, yeah.
Well, eventually it's coming. It's been announced for about 4 years.
There'll be a remake of a remake. That's what's going to happen.
We're in my pop vinyl room.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, which I have to start rearranging to line everybody up. So, okay, up next, game I never played, Beyond Oasis.
That is on one of the Genesis collections.
Oh, I'm
That's
sure.
the only time I've played it, and it seems like a Zelda type game.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Okay.
I wouldn't say control scheme wise it was as smooth. I didn't get. It seemed like the collision detection was a little thin, to say the least.
Okay.
Where you played Zelda Link to the Past. You knew when you were making contact with an enemy.
Yeah.
The button scheme and
even though there was no rumble, you felt it.
Yeah. The collision it felt accurate. You felt like you knew how to time your shots. This one, it just seems a little looser from what I remember playing. But it seemed like there was some interesting enemies, monsters. The map layout was nice. The graphics are pretty nice. It's a very Zelda-esque type of game.
Here's one that we all love, and I don't think there's really anyone who can truly hate this game. I mean, you may find it frustrating, but you can't hate it.
Yeah.
Ghouls and Ghosts.
I love that game. That's my favorite in the series.
Of course, that is the Genesis version of Ghosts and Goblins.
It was licensed to Sega by Capcom. It was not programmed by Capcom, and Sega basically did it from the ground up, and they did that also with Strider.
Okay,
before
you're a big Strider fan.
I'm a big Ghouls and Ghosts fan too. At least that Ghouls and Ghosts. Like
I do. Is this the same as Super Ghouls and Ghosts?
Not at all.
They are two different type games?
Ghouls and Ghosts. And Ghouls and Ghosts is no fluke. It's a hard game.
It's terribly
hard.
The original game is terribly hard.
But it's much more user-friendly than, in my opinion, Super Ghouls and Ghosts has a double jump.
Okay,
but you cannot
that's true.
shoot. You can't shoot vertically. This one you can shoot vertically. You could shoot up and down as well as horizontally. It makes a huge difference. And I felt that the controls were a little more freed up in this version of Ghouls and Ghosts.
Okay.
Like you really had a little bit more freedom of movement. It didn't feel stiff.
Mm-hmm.
Super Ghouls and Ghosts to me always felt stiff.
Okay.
Which made it even harder. But I remember getting this in Christmas in 1990 or whatever it was, and man, there was a way to cheat, and I would love to Google it and find out. What you had to do, I think you almost had to do like an up-down code so many times. But what you had to do first was put in like Altered Beast or something and yank it out when it was on.
That doesn't sound good at all.
Reset it and then do this like cross-type code, and you were invincible. And I think that's the only way I ever been. I have to look it up. It was a weird thing from way back when. It's very obscure.
That doesn't even sound like
if
it would
any
work.
of any of you listeners know about it, please post it up because I remember it, and that's the only way I beat it. I don't remember exactly how it went.
Okay.
But
that sounds like you could break your system.
It was a weird cartridge hack thing. Yeah, it was really weird.
If you do it and your system breaks, we are not held responsible.
I don't remember the exact way to do it, but
Up next in the Alex Kidd series, and I feel like I downloaded one of these games. Alex Kidd in the Enchanted Castle.
yeah, Alex Kidd in the Enchanted Castle was a direct sequel to Alex Kidd in Miracle World on the Master System.
That's the one that's available right now on the Switch.
Is
Miracle
it really?
World.
So, although Alex Kidd had several Master System release. I think it was a little more popular in South America and Japan than it was here. It was their first attempt to kind of have a Super Mario type game before Sonic. It's definitely an acquired taste. It's definitely you basically advance, get weapons and lives. Sometimes you go into a room and you got to play rock paper scissors, and it's a jumping, kicking, punching kind of platform actioner. I remember this game. I own this game. I had Miracle World. They're not bad games. They're not Mario caliber. They're not Sonic caliber. They're kind of like, the B team,
Yeah.
And they were fun. I mean, I never finished Miracle World. I finished this one. It was okay. It wasn't anything to write home about, and it wasn't. In other words, maybe like a weekend rental. At best, it should have been. I mean, I owned it, but like, it was also very cheap from what I remember back then too. So, it's a good addition. It's a surprise. I was surprised they threw that in. So,
fair enough.
Yeah.
So we got 3 more to go. Here's a classic, an absolute classic, Golden Axe.
I was I'm not surprised that they put in because it was a big early Genesis first tier game.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very good translation of the arcade. It's probably the best one that was ported. That doesn't make it exact. It has 2 extra levels. For some reason, the dwarf has a silver axe now instead of a golden one.
Mm-hmm.
Little things. It's an arcade brawler. You can't
It's just straight up. Yeah.
You can't. I happen to think Streets of Rage 2, the other brawler I think that's on here. I think it's a superior game in every way, shape, or form. But you can't go wrong with Golden Axe. It has great music. It's got that fun fantasy setting. If you like that whole Conan the Barbarian sort of thing, you can't go wrong with it. I'm not surprised it's included in this.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. I'm glad it's in there.
Yeah.
Okay, up next, a game I played a little bit, Vector Man.
That was another one, Vector Man 1 and 2. That was on the Sonic's Greatest Hits.
Oh, yeah, a lot of these, they've been re-released 1,000 times.
That's the only time I've ever played it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was okay. The animation's beautiful. It's definitely... I was reading somewhere that, Sega... It was almost kind of like an answer to... the digital graphics of Donkey Kong Country, like they try to kind of answer that.
It's on the nose, Vector Man. You know what I mean? They tried to push the limits of the 16-bit system to look more than 16 bits.
At that point Super Nintendo at that point was winning the 16-bit war.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue the year before, maybe when Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat and Sonic games were releasing, Genesis had the upper hand, but I think at that point Super Nintendo really won people over,
Okay. And then finally, again, a series I never really played, but rounding out now 30 of the 40 games, Wonder Boy in Monster World.
Okay, so yeah, I never played this one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it. I know about the Wonder Boy games, never action platformer, I'm assuming, with some kind of jumping mechanic, attack mechanic, point scoring mechanic.
I think this also may be coming out on the Switch, if I'm not mistaken.
It wouldn't surprise me. So, let me ask you, if you had to pick any couple of Genesis games for the last 10.
Oh, my God.
And you don't have to name 10, but...
I know, but now... You see, here's the thing, because the door's wide open because you have the Disney games on there. I feel like, licensing-wise, I feel like they need to put either Sonic 2 or Sonic and Knuckles.
Isn't Sonic 2 on? Sonic 2's on there.
Is it?
Sonic
I'm
2's
sorry.
On there, yeah.
Sonic and Knuckles,
You're saying another Sonic game on there. Okay.
Even round out maybe Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles because, especially Sonic and Knuckles had that lock-on technology. Where if you put, Sonic 1 or 2 on it, or even 3, I guess. No, I think Knuckles was in 3. If you put Sonic 1 and 2, if you lock it on, you can actually play as Knuckles in the game, in the original Sonic games. And, like, there's, like, you reach new heights. Like, literally, like, there's new spots you can reach with Knuckles.
That's pretty wild.
In Sonic 1 and 2.
Yeah, like an early version.
Like a hack.
Like a hack, yeah.
That, I would say, would go in. Boy, I'm trying to...
Is there anything you're surprised that you haven't seen yet?
No.
Off the bat, I would say Revenge of Shinobi would be one.
Okay.
Because that was a huge early game. But they put Shinobi 3. So I'm kind of wondering if they're going to add another Shinobi game. It wouldn't shock me, but I didn't like the game Kid Chameleon. That usually tends to go on these collections.
Yep.
I was never a fan of it. As far as a wish list game, I would love to see Sunsoft's Batman on there. It's not a great game, but it was so niche and so unique and so obscure. And it's actually more faithful to the 1989 movie than the Nintendo version was, which seemed like it hewed closer to the comic book. So I'd like to see that and the Hyperstone Heist.
Oh, Turtles, yeah. I feel like we need a sports game.
Good point.
But it would have to be a generic sports game. Like, you can't be like NHLPA or something like that, I don't think. But I'm trying to think who, like a Joe Montana football or...
Could they even get the license from EA to put those games out? Because...
they probably could.
Madden Football on the Genesis was a game changer. I mean, we all know that built a whole legacy that continues to this day.
True.
You know, I can't imagine it without Madden Football, to be honest. You know, and I'm not even saying... I wasn't even a regular player of Madden Football, but I would think if they had to get anything... It would be Madden Football.
All right. Yeah, I can't think of anything. Like I said, I wasn't really heavy into the library. Maybe an X-Men game, if they can. I mean, if they have Disney,
I would see Sega Spider-Man first, before that.
See, I could see X-Men or X-Men 2. Probably X-Men 2 Clone Wars.
You think that was better?
That's again. I wasn't. I remember my friends who were heavy into comic books and all that. They love Clone Wars.
Really? See,
and I feel like Clone Wars does get more of a better rap than the original X-Men game.
Wow. Yeah, I remember the original one, and I think I played Clone Wars the other day for like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it. You know?
Fair enough.
A lot of their Sega's made Marvel games like Spider-Man and X-Men. I just felt like the level design and the collision detection was very sloppy and off. Like it didn't feel right. But,
of course, a personal favorite would be if they put like Raw, WWE Raw, Royal Rumble in there. That'd be cool.
One of the wrestling.
That'd be cool.
I doubt you're gonna see that,
but
I
don't think so.
That would be fun. They were fun games.
That's a wish list.
Yeah, that's definitely a wish list. You know, I don't know.
Well, you let us know, people. You know, there's 10 games left. Let us know what you would like to see, what you think you're going to see on this. Remember, the system comes out in the middle of September. You can pre-order it now on Amazon. I know we both have ours pre-ordered.
Yeah, I can't believe I did that. I'm very... and I remember when the NES and SNES, I told Larry back then I wasn't really crazy about it, and then eventually I caved. But this, I'm actually enthused. I'm actually excited to see it. You know, I would love to see a Sega CD Mini, but that's
that's going to go along with the
my
N64.
albatross, right? That's like my Virtual Boy, Larry.
What can go on there? I mean, what, 6 games? Sewer Shark?
Oh, I can name games. So
Road Rash? Not Road Rash.
Road Avenger? You talking about Road Avenger?
Is that the one that played like
a cartoon?
Yeah. That's the one I had. I had Road Avenger.
That was a good game.
Yep.
No, I could see Final Fight right off the bat.
You always are saying that version of Final Fight is amazing.
It's the best home version of the game. Yeah. And the soundtrack actually is superior to the arcade. And enough said. Yeah.
So let us know what you would like to see on this Genesis Mini with the remaining 10 games. Are you going to buy the 6-button controller from Retrobit? You know, let us know at the Facebook page, on Instagram, and we want to hear from you.
That's it.
Folks, get your tickets now. Remember, for the Long Island Retro Gaming Expo at the Cradle of Aviation Museum returns August 10th and 11th. You can remember that weekend because it's SummerSlam weekend. I was going to be in Toronto, but I'm going to be in Garden City, New York. The Retro Gamers will be there. We will have a table. We will be podcasting. We will try and live stream. We'll have games that you can play. And if you buy any games there, if you want to try them out, we'll have some systems there, hopefully, for you. But get your tickets now. You can find them. Search Facebook for Long Island Retro Gaming Expo. Get your tickets early because they are cheaper before you buy them at the door. And we will see you August 10th and 11th at the Cradle of Aviation Museum in Garden City, New York for the 2019 Long Island Retro Gaming Expo. Also, we'll have tabletop gaming, and I understand we'll have a pinball tournament. Check it out. All right, folks. So recently, as you heard and as you saw, yes, there is no video portion this week. So if you're trying to find us on YouTube, don't. Well, actually, technically, you can find the audio version.
You can put it on.
Yeah, all the audio versions are actually on my page, More365. I will pimp that out for now.
Now you're talking.
But of course, when Anthony's around, he's the video expert. I do the audio, he does the video.
Yeah, I really, on my stuff, I got to get on point with this stuff, man.
And actually, I'm going to pull the curtain back for those maybe who realize it. So we have our entrance theme, but that's for Talking More Wrestling, our opening theme. And when it sounds different, like when you hear the one that goes,
right, yeah, which one is that?
That's the one that we use for the YouTube video. And when you hear that on the audio, that means I didn't have time to edit it, and Rippo just sends me the audio.
Just sends that clip for it. Okay. Hey, listen. Sometimes you gotta improvise, think quick, and just use that clip. That's a shorter clip, right?
That's a much shorter clip.
Yeah.
Well, I've also shortened for all my podcasts, except for Better Half, because I didn't want to get sued. But for the other shows, they were I had 30-second intros. I thought that was a nice, good, get you ready, get you into it.
Yeah, I'm not monetized, so I use whatever I want, and they just flag me, and I'm just like, yeah, whatever.
So, but I shortened it now to 15 seconds, so people may have noticed that. It was a shorter entrance.
Yeah, I play guitar and bass. If I can get a drummer, I would record
Play
my own.
Guitar.
I would record my own theme. It's just getting people together to do this stuff, and it's time and it's money, so,
Speaking of which, with time, of course, everyone knows I recently just moved, which I'm finally getting everything all settled in. We're here at the new Studio A, and it's starting to come together finally.
You should call it Studio L.
Live from Studio L.
Like Studio Larry, yeah.
So I got the furniture coming in, and Mario was over on Friday, and I decided to break out the old Xbox 360 and the PS3, which I haven't hooked up in a long time.
Are those systems now considered retro?
That's always the back and forth that me and Anthony have. What is considered retro? Is it a generational thing? Is it just a pure how long it's been out?
Passage of time.
You know what I mean? It's everyone. I don't think we've never nailed that down.
And we talked about that the other night. Believe it or not, PS3 and Xbox, they came out around 2004, 2005. Am I right?
Maybe.
So we're getting to 15 years.
I'm trying to think what generation they're considered. They're definitely in the same generation.
No, they are. They were competing systems. They were head to head. PS2 and the original Xbox were competing systems.
Seventh gen, because I was going to say we're currently in the 8th generation of systems. So those would be the 7th generation. Okay. Yeah, this came out in 2005 was the Xbox 360.
I would think passage of time more than anything else, and usage. So. I would think, if not by now, by next year, they would be considered retro systems.
Probably.
Probably. Yeah.
So, I'm trying to figure out this 2-television system that I'm going to have in my living room, because I do have a smaller television for all the minis and stuff like that. But I think Friday I came up with a good idea for the 360 and the PS3 to hook them up to my main television, where I don't need them. I'm not worried about them being plugged in constantly. They don't need to be, if I need to update them, I'll update them when I can. So we booted them up, and the main reason why I wanted to boot up the 360 is because for the first time in a long time, actually, let me back up for a second. When Anthony went to Barcade in Los Angeles and did the live feed, and again, but if you're in the Los Angeles area, if you're in the Brooklyn area, if you're in Newark, if you're in Philly, I think there's one, in New York City.
Canada, too, isn't there one?
No, not yet, not in Canada. I mean, I'm sure there's bar arcades, but they all pale in comparison to Barcade. If you can find yourself a Barcade, definitely go to your local Barcade. It's awesome. They have great games. They do have family afternoons, so there are some afternoons where you can actually bring the kids.
Are they well maintained?
Absolutely.
Machines?
No, they work. They work on them themselves.
Wow.
And especially nowadays where they literally do not make CRT televisions anymore. It's a little tougher nowadays, but they maintain them beautifully. Yeah. So Anthony did the walkthrough at the Los Angeles one, and he walked past with that they have a 6-player X-Men arcade game.
Yeah.
Now, there were 2 versions of this X-Men arcade game. There was a 4-player and a 6-player.
I think I remember both.
I remember mostly the 4-player.
4 was more common.
Yeah.
I would think that would be like a cost thing with the...
Because the 4-player only used 1 monitor, where when you got the 6 players, it did use 2 monitors.
Yep.
By me growing up in Brooklyn, we had Funtime USA, which for any wrestling fans out there, you may remember Crash Holly defending the hardcore title against the Headbangers at Funtime USA.
Yeah. That's funny.
So, and I think they, and Anthony can correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm sure he will. I think they only had the 4-player X-Men. It wasn't until years later I saw a 6-player. I'm like, what the hell is this?
I think I remember the 6-player in Sega's Timeout in Roosevelt Field.
Wow.
Because I remember the double screen. And
Side note, you know what we got to do?
What?
One day we got to go to Round 1 over there in the Broadway Mall.
Oh yeah, definitely. They have.
They have a ton of games, and they have a nice arcade.
But is it like the new style arcade?
They have new stuff. They have old stuff. They have
have
imported stuff. They have Japanese games as well, which Barcade had as well. Some Japanese games.
They still got They still have that Dave and Buster's over there in Farmingdale. Where did I? You know what? No, in Adventureland, I played the world's largest screen of.
Oh, they have
Pac-Man
those.
and
Yeah,
Eric,
those
that
are
was
fun.
pretty
Yeah.
fun. Yeah.
Actually, I saw that one in the bowling alley too.
You know, and not to go too off topic
No.
because we got to get back to Xbox 360. Did you ever play the original Street Fighter with the big pads for buttons, and the harder you hit the pad?
No, I never even heard of that.
There were 2 versions of Street Fighter. One was a 6-button, and I'm talking Street Fighter 1 from 1987 or 88, whatever it was.
What we know is Fighting Street on the
So,
PC Engine.
You know that AMC theater in Levittown? There was
Yes.
always a movie theater there, and
Yeah.
I think I could be mistaken. I could be thinking of the closed down Meadowbrook in East Meadow, which is I think was a Burlington. It's probably something else now, or Panera, or whatever the hell it was. There was a Meadowbrook theater there for years. One of those places is where I saw that and played that Street Fighter, where it was 2 buttons, a punch and a kick, and if you tapped it, you'd get the light punch. If you hit it with a little more force, you get the medium. If you smacked it, you'd get it was a pressure
That's
sensitive.
interesting.
And this is something you can look up. This is
Oh, I believe you.
It was that was because I never had played the 6-button until later on. That's the way I thought the original Street Fighter was. And for the record, people, any version you play of it, it was not a very good game. Anyway, back to X-Men.
So I saw X-Men when Anthony was doing the live feed, and I'm like, hey, you know what? I have that game you were able to purchase on Xbox 360, on Xbox Live.
Okay.
And when I looked into I was just looking into it, because I didn't have my Xbox 360 hooked up. It's been years since I had it hooked up.
Right.
Maybe not years, but it was a long time. It could be a couple of years. First of all, I learned that apparently, which I didn't realize until I looked into this, on Xbox Live, I think they even do it on PlayStation. They do it on PlayStation as well, because it was available on PlayStation.
Yeah, I would think
They
so.
eventually may take the games down where you can't purchase them anymore, or re-download them. See, when you buy a game digitally, you can re-download it as many times as you need to.
Okay.
But if it's no longer available on the network, you're SOL.
Yeah.
So
correct.
So
now let me ask you a question. Do you think the reason being is that to put those games up and to run that code or whatever online, you think there's a cost to it, and if it's not selling or it's not being downloaded as much and it's not effective to use that space on their online, I don't know how that works.
There are a ton of games, no offense, that are terrible quality compared to X-Men. X-Men's got to be one of the best arcade games ever.
It's funny how Konami had a pretty good run with some of their three-quarter brawlers.
Exactly.
You know, they had Ninja Turtles, they had The Simpsons, they had that. I mean, and I don't know if you guys know this, there's a Super Nintendo brawler, Batman Returns, that Konami
That's very
did.
good.
You know, they had a pretty good run with those Double Dragon-style beat-em-ups.
Yeah. So I was nervous that for some reason I wouldn't be able to play it, or if I ever deleted the Xbox 360, I'm never going to get that game back.
Right.
Luckily, though, it still works. I hooked it up. We had a little trouble signing. I had trouble signing into my.
That was pretty funny.
Yeah, I had to like update something, but finally when we got in there, my Xbox 360 works, and we were able to play X-Men, and it looks gorgeous.
I mean, and you know, and they have several options on how you want the screen to look. And it's
4-player versus 6. 4 players, just your 4x3. 6-player is done widescreen. You can play the USA ROM. You can play the Japanese ROM.
Yep.
And I know it kind of stinks to talk about it because it's not like you guys can go out and download it because it's not available anymore. But if you still have the game on the Xbox or the PS3,
Try to hold on to it.
do not erase those.
Yeah.
those,
You never know when these things are going to come back. That's the I mean, look, you could probably get it on any emulator or Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, even though we do not promote those, but still.
Yeah, we don't promote that stuff here. So.
But going through the Xbox 360 and like looking at the games I had, I forgot how for a while there were some really good arcade games that were being released on Xbox Live for the 360.
I was impressed with what you had.
I mean,
really was. Yeah.
Forget not only the games I have, but some of the demos that are available as well.
Yeah.
And granted, we're getting a lot of them through like the arcade classics and the Switch, the PS1, PS4, Xbox One's getting a lot of arcades. But like for example, I had besides X-Men, I have though it was a demo, unfortunately, but I think I can purchase it. The TMNT original arcade game, not the NES version,
and not Turtles in Time, the first one in that series.
Yeah, the original arcade game. I gotta go back and check that out, see if I can re-download that, or I would purchase that.
That was a good brawler. That was that was Konami's, from what I remember, like their first Double Dragon style brawler, and it was. That was a massive hit. I mean, I remember that game before Street Fighter 2 as being the game kids wanted to play in the arcade.
Oh, yeah, and it's probably one of the best translations from arcade to NES. Yeah. The NES version was phenomenal.
You think so?
I thought so.
You know what? When I was that age, I did too.
Even today, I think it is.
I think the NES version, as difficult as the arcade is, I think the NES version's insanely more difficult.
And it's got 2 extra levels, so I don't know.
It's got 2 extra levels. The one that came out after that, number 3 in something in Manhattan.
Oh, the Manhattan Project.
I think that's superior.
That one is a good version as well.
Well, I don't think they ever made an arcade of.
No, not an arcade. Not that I know.
It was Turtles in Time was the arcade sequel, which is forget it.
Pinnacle.
That was one of the best Super Nintendo games translated.
For a minute, I didn't realize it was a demo, and it's available now on the current systems. But Double Dragon, the arcade game.
Yeah, that was fun. The collision was awful, but it was in the arcade. But nobody cared because you were just feeding it quarters, and that was the whole point. You can definitely see it's Renegade. Was it Renegade or Bad Dudes? Which one was it? Renegade or Bad Renegade? Right?
I don't
yeah,
know.
Bad Dudes was the president was kidnapped by.
Oh
ninjas.
yeah.
No, Renegade was the precursor to Double Dragon.
Oh, okay.
And you could definitely feel more of the Renegade roots in Double Dragon than the sequel or anything that followed. But man, that was kind of fun to play.
Yeah,
like
they had some cool stuff. I know it was available on a 360, but when I booted up the PS3, I had I have the Simpsons arcade game, which is
another great
phenomenal.
Konami again.
Yeah.
What
else did I have on there? I had the Mortal Kombat collection, which is Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and I want to say 3.
Or is it Ultimate 3?
Maybe Ultimate 3, kind of like the arcade 1-up.
Yeah, I think people infinitely preferred Ultimate 3. Am I right?
I don't know. I kind of like 2.
No, I mean.
Oh, you mean for the 3? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, 3
I think Ultimate kind of fixed whatever was problems with Mortal Kombat 3.
I think a lot of people are with you
Strider.
with that sentiment.
Striker.
I think most people, when you look at the Mortal Kombat series as a whole, I think they felt 2 is the high point of the series, which I have not played the recent versions, the last 3 or 4 in the last couple of years, which I understand are pretty good in quality. I understand they're pretty decent, so okay. I wouldn't know. But
so yeah, I mean a lot of arcades available, but like I'm just talking about the games that you never thought you would see, or why they never released X-Men on the home console, The Simpsons on a home console, before Xbox Live and PlayStation Plus and stuff like that. What are some arcade games that you would have loved, even now, because there's a lot of arcade games coming out? What arcade game would you like to see available? I know I have one that I'll never see available.
Well, let's hear yours first, because I'm trying to remember.
Mine's going to be, actually, two. Everyone always leans towards one of them, but I'm going to say both WWE Superstars and WrestleFest. 2
great games.
WWE arcade games. Yes, I'm saying WWE. Arcade games. 2 of the greatest wrestling arcade games that were out there. The graphics were phenomenal.
They were fun games.
They were so
remember
fun.
Them very distinctly. Wow.
That I'm surprised never came out on a home console.
You know what? Actually, it came out on the Lynx, of all things. And we were talking about the Lynx the other day.
Yeah.
Not that it's a particularly good game. I just remember I have good memories associated. It's another brawler. I seem to have been drawn by brawlers in the arcades when I was younger. I don't know if you ever played the arcade version of Ninja Gaiden. Have you ever played that?
No, but they just made it available on the Switch.
See that?
And probably the PS4.
It's a
I know I'm
brawler.
saying Switch.
It's a brawler. It's not a particularly great brawler. It was a rare brawler, but it was one of those occasions where one of Nintendo's things was if you were gonna make a game from the arcade to home, it had to be a certain percentage had to be different.
Yep.
And this is like 100% different than the arcade. It's a complete. We know that the Ninja Gaiden is a well-designed side-scrolling platformer action type game in the vein of Shinobi and all that stuff. No, the Ninja Gaiden in the arcade is more like Double Dragon.
Okay.
It's a brawler. It's a beat 'em up.
And they do have and I keep staring at them. I have them on my wish list. I would like to get Ninja Gaiden arcade version, the Double Dragon arcade version, and the Double Dragon 2 arcade version.
I think, in the historical context, just to play, just to know what the difference was, and was like, it's worth it. Again, is it a particularly good brawler? It's not Final Fight quality. It's not Golden Axe quality. But it's not. A lot of those brawlers for a few years, especially during the Double Dragon period, they got a little cookie cutter. There's very few standouts.
True.
But, it's worth a play. It definitely is. It's definitely different. It's definitely unique. It's very strange. You'll see some enemies and some things that they kind of drew into the Nintendo versions. I played the Nintendo versions recently, and I noticed they use a lot of sound effects from Rygar in them.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I'll have to, if you have the plug and play, we'll have to examine it if you have those games.
Yeah, we'll check it out.
And I'll show you where that is. But as far as arcade games that I would have liked to have seen, so I said Ninja Gaiden. And you mentioned wrestling game, and I'm going to mention another wrestling game. It had an awful Genesis translation, but it wasn't seen anywhere else as far as the arcade Wrestle War.
WCW.
No, it was just
no.
Wrestle
I'm sorry.
War.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. I think Wrestle War because that was a WCW pay-per-view. Yeah.
I don't know. A lot of the arcade games that I remember playing did make some kind of home.
They did, right?
Translation.
You know, really, X-Men and I think The Simpsons were those two, were the two.
Yeah, that didn't
that
really
just
have...
eventually, and never really still got they were just available online. You know, it's not like they had this huge release or something like that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what else could I, and I'm thinking back the past 35 years now. From when I was a kid, I really can't think of anything. Do you remember that it was like a movie screen where you shot down planes with that big machine gun?
I think I know of what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's not really an arcade. There's no way to do that.
That was World War II. All right, so it's very cool to boot them up, and like I said, I have a good idea how I'll be doing those.
Yeah, quite a collection on the PS3 too. I was kind of blown away.
No, PS3's got some good stuff. I forget what's on there. All right, some other quick news to talk about. First of all, we have, and you can get them on Steam, Xbox One, PS4, Nintendo Switch, the Konami 50th anniversary Castlevania collection.
Did you say 50th?
50. Konami's 50
well,
years.
Konami's 50. I'm thinking Castlevania's not 50.
No. But for their 50th, last month or 2 months ago, Konami put out the arcade collection.
Right.
Now they've released the Castlevania collection.
Outstanding.
The next one up is going to be the Contra collection, which I'm waiting for.
Oh, I bet you are.
So
Xbox 360, that was another game you had on there, was Contra, the arcade.
Oh, yeah, and that version's going to be on the collection.
Wow.
In fact, they haven't announced all 8 games. They announced the first 4, which is going to be the arcade versions of Contra and Super Contra. Super C from NES will be on there.
Excellent version.
Because the NES games do play differently than the arcade games.
They will. I noticed the stages seem longer on the NES.
Yeah, and I mean, besides the pure graphical difference,
smoother.
It's
much smoother.
And Castlevania 3, Alien Wars, that was on Super Nintendo.
I just played that this morning.
Not Castlevania 3, Contra 3, I meant. So, and I'm assuming we'll get to Contra Hardcore and stuff like that, but we'll talk about that later.
Right.
So, the 8 games for Castlevania that came out, pretty much straightforward. There's really no shock here. Castlevania's 1, 2, 3, 4. Castlevania Adventure 1 and 2 both on Game Boy, which is very cool to see.
That is awesome.
Castlevania Bloodline, which have some news on that in a moment, and for the first time translated for North America, Kid Dracula.
No, that's awesome. Was Symphony of the Night on there too?
No, and that's the thing. So everyone, that's not the news I want to mention, but everyone was like, oh my gosh, where's Symphony of the Night? How can you have a collection without Symphony of the Night? Well, it's very easy. Symphony of the Night just came out its own collection. So Konami's not going to put it out over and over and over again.
That's pretty wild. I didn't know
It came.
that. Wow.
It's called the Castlevania Requiem collection. It's Symphony of the Night and Rondo of Blood.
Which are
Which it is the
it
TurboGrafx.
It tells an overall story though.
Well,
it tells one arcing story. Right?
Rondo of Blood is here. It was called Castlevania Dracula X, which is not a good translation compared to the original Japanese PC. I want to say it was purely on the TurboGrafx CD PC Engine.
It was Turbo Duo or PC.
So
it was something like that.
And it's unfortunately it's not available anymore. But if you wanted the pure direct version of the Japanese version of Rondo of Blood, it was available on the WiiWare, the Wii console.
Oh yeah.
Not WiiWare, but Virtual Console. And luckily I grabbed that before they shut that down. That's the only true one-to-one translation. Everything else you get is the Super NES version, which was okay compared to the other one. So that's why you're not getting Symphony of the Night, because you can buy Symphony of the Night in another package.
It's fairly available.
Which is fine.
If you have a PlayStation, you can get it online there.
Besides, with this collection, if you think about it, it's kind of the side-scrollers. So they all... Well, except for Castlevania 2, I guess. Well, that throws that theory out the window.
Well, they're still side-scrolling platforms.
Basically.
It's just,
Castlevania 2 is more back and forth. Yeah.
2 has more in common with Symphony of the Night. It's just poorly executed.
Oh, I hate that game. But it's a great collection, great versions of the games. Even the Game Boy versions hold up.
Yeah.
And definitely check it out. It's $20, well worth it. The news I wanted to mention, though, is with Castlevania Bloodlines. That was the
Sega Genesis,
right? version, which was a phenomenal, my favorite Castlevania game.
It's a great game
of the series.
It was very, very addictive. I remember.
Again, the North American version was tamed compared to the Japanese version.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I think the Japanese version has like more blood in it, especially when you die. So what Konami's announced that after the release, so it will be an update later on.
Okay.
They will update the game where we will get the Japanese. We can select the Japanese version.
That's pretty.
So that's going to be big time. So that's pretty cool.
Guys are really listening to the fans.
They
I
are.
think.
It's like Paramount with Sonic, the movie.
Oh God. Yeah.
So definitely check out that series. And the final thing I just want to mention real quick before we wrap this up, this is more just kind of a heads up. It's pretty cool. For the Nintendo Switch, Super Mario Maker 2 is going to be coming out. I don't have the release date. I want to say June, maybe late June, if not early July. They're doing this sale where if you can pre-order Super Mario Maker 2 and get 12 months of Nintendo Online service for an extra like $10. So it's the game for $60, and then you basically get a year of Nintendo Online for $10, which is half price.
That's great.
Great.
That's a phenomenal.
Great.
Wow.
But here's what's cool. If you already have Nintendo Online service, they'll just add that time to your current whatever's left.
It sounds like a win-win to me.
So not only that, now, so you do that, and also don't forget, people, if you have Amazon Prime, link it to a Twitch account, because if you do that, you will get a free year of Nintendo Online service. And again, if you already have Nintendo Online, they will just add that year to your balance. So at this point, so here's where I'm at. So I buy it, of course, day one. I buy Nintendo Online.
Okay.
And I had so many points, the gold coin points.
Yeah.
I actually got it for half price. I got it for $10 for a year. Like, sweet. So $10, 1 year, expires September of 2019.
Okay.
I do the Twitch deal. Now, granted, you have to do it in 2 stages, but ultimately it'll equal a year.
All right.
So that's going to extend that to September of 2020. Now
that's what, a year and 4 months away or so, whatever.
And I'm still only paid $10.
Oh my God.
Now I pre-order Super Mario Maker 2, which I was going to do anyway, with the $10 deal.
Right.
So now I've paid $20, and I've gotten like 3 years out of this.
Guys, if you could Mac this like Larry does, you guys are set. Because
and I know some people are like, oh, $20, for an online, which is not a bad price.
No, that's a great price.
At this point,
for that length of time, that's phenomenal, dude.
Oh man,
good for you, man. Listen, you know how to do it. Now, my question to you, is what do we know about Mario Maker 2? What's different from this as opposed to the first one, which in itself is a groundbreaker.
They did. They actually they did a Nintendo Direct.
Okay.
For and unfortunately, I due to my stay in the hospital recently. I won't be able to take a day off for the E3 Nintendo Direct.
Yeah, but you know.
But anyway, so Super Mario Maker 2, besides the fact that it's the same as before where you can create Mario levels,
Okay.
they've added some more stuff, some more graphics. Like you can do slopes now. You can actually add the sun. Remember the evil sun from Super Mario Bros. 3?
Oh, wow.
So you can add that into the game.
more,
Stuff like that. 2-player capability. So 2 people can work on the same level at the same time.
Okay.
So I guess you kind of get through it quicker. That's cool.
Do they do simultaneous 2-player in those games now, or I don't even
Well,
know? I'm out of the loop with this stuff.
No, I don't think simultaneous 2-player, but there is a story mode
that
in
could
the
be
game,
fun. Yeah.
which has different. It's almost like a new Super Mario Brothers game at that point, because then you go through the levels, all made by people from Nintendo. They may throw random stages in there, like made by people.
And then you can make a stage from scratch.
Of course,
right?
and then you can upload it. You can play through the game without making a single level. I've never made a level in Super Mario Maker 1. I just go online and just play levels people make.
See, I would love that for my kids. They like all that kind of
It's fun.
Minecraft stuff.
Yeah.
And I think they would love designing levels. I would love doing that. I think I would take right to the design elements and try to make a few games.
Oh,
and
some of the
levels
levels
in the story.
people make are ridiculous.
Yeah.
And you can do the graphics of Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers 3, Super Mario World. You can even now do Super Mario 3D World, which was on 3D World. Yep.
That would intimidate me.
So,
But
I think it's still a bit of a side scroller, but you still has those graphics.
Really freaking cool.
So check out the Nintendo Direct.
The Twitch is selling me more and more, dude.
Switch.
I'm telling you, yeah, the Nintendo Switch, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's selling me.
I'm telling you, it's a great system.
Yeah,
So.
I'm thinking about it.
I think
For
that's
wish
it on the
fulfillment,
news. Yeah.
we talked about this too the other day. How would people feel about a Zelda maker, or even
We were talking about that, yeah.
even more so? What about a Metroid? I think Metroid would be completely conducive to your own creative level design. I think that you could switch from 8-bit to 16-bit and make the worlds any way you want.
I think we need to get a new Metroid game first before we get a Metroid Maker.
I think that lends itself to the. Even more so than Zelda. I could understand the complexity of making that. You're not just doing overworld. You're doing underworld.
But
dungeons.
you can do, because they have RPG makers, they have dungeon makers, they're actual games. But to throw the
Zelda,
the
name
Zelda
on
license
it
and the graphics and everything, that would be a home run. There would be a lot of people who would definitely do that.
Yeah,
I mean, there's people homebrew in these games. Why not?
Yeah, Nintendo is really.
I have a homebrew. I have a Zelda homebrew.
They're knocking it out of the park.
They
though.
are.
I mean, with their product, man. I'm more and more like, I'm right there ready to buy. I wasn't really interested in getting a new system.
There's some. You gotta be on the lookout for the sales. They got some really good sales sometimes.
No, I
so
will. I'm definitely
check it out.
thinking about
check
it.
it out.
Yeah.
That's basically about it. So much for this being a handheld level version of the game, the podcast. This is a full episode.
Yeah,
Oh, that's right. One final thing. Speaking of handheld.
Oh boy.
Well, by the time this drops, it's over, so it's kind of a moot point at this point. But Tetris 99.
Okay.
We talked last time about they have their DLC. You know, the game's a free game, but now for $10 you get a DLC.
Right.
Well worth the $10. The game's phenomenal. I'd pay $10 to get the base game.
Yeah, I know you've been a big fan of it.
So this past weekend, from when you're listening to this podcast when it first drops, they had their third Tetris Maximus, as they call it, tournament, for lack of a better term. The first one they did was you actually won basically the equivalent of $10 in for the eShop. For the top 999 players, it came in first place. The closest I've ever come was second place. So, so that was the first one. The second one was just earning points. Like in the weekend, you earn 100 points, which can be a little difficult, or at least very time consuming.
Okay.
I forgot what you got on that one. I don't remember. Well, anyway, the third one, the one this weekend, which I thought was awesome, with the DLC, looks like they're going to be coming out with like a graphic overlay that you can change.
Right.
And this weekend was, if you earn 100 points, in playing the game over and over, I must have played about maybe 10 games, 15 games.
Okay.
No, maybe 10 before I finally got it. And as you are playing it, it's already in the overlay. Game Boy.
Yeah.
The Game Boy overlay for Tetris 99.
I think,
Hold on. I was not expecting it to be what it was. It looks like a Game Boy.
Yeah.
Okay? And then when it plays 3, 2, 1, go, the graphics are the original Game Boy graphics. Original Game Boy music and original Game Boy sounds, even to the point when you lose,
Yeah.
you get the you know, like
I forgot about
I was
that.
waiting for
Wow.
like do 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 do, which you don't have.
They played that Russian song,
Yeah,
right?
you know,
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That was the screen. Was it over
Green.
pixelated? Was it?
It wasn't over pixelated.
They made
no,
it look
but it was
like the
green.
Game Boy. Yeah.
I was shocked. I was not expecting it to look that on the nose,
That's pretty cool, man.
and that is the only way I'm going to play the game from now on because I unlocked it, so I have it.
That's the way
I love that stuff. That makes me smile.
The game, that's a cool
I'll
thing
show it to you
hear.
before you
No, I
leave.
definitely want to check that out. The only thing I do want to add before before I sign off here is I was treated this past, what was that, Saturday, to the Virtual Boy experience. Friday. Yeah, that's right. I took off on Friday. I was treated to the Virtual Boy experience. As you guys know, Larry is, as us philosophical folks say, an apologetics for the Virtual Boy. And they had it set up over there at Game On, right? And what was the game I played?
It was, the game, literally, the Virtual Boy was sold back when we were there.
Okay.
And, you know, it's rare enough that you see a Virtual Boy, let alone one that worked that well. I don't even think mine works 100% that well. The one that this kid sold back.
It was in pretty mint condition.
You played
Wario something
You played
or other.
Wario Land. Virtual Boy Wario Land.
I played about 30 seconds of Wario Land. I was not very good at it.
Now, to be fair,
Okay.
and we've laid to rest the whole VB sucks thing. We've laid to rest the Virtual Boy. I mean, we could talk about it, but the damaging conversations that Anthony would have.
Yeah. He likes to dig that knife into you, you know?
So, I will dare say that Virtual Boy Wario Land is one of the best platformers of gaming. I would dare put it in a top 10 list of everything. I mean, if you're putting everything in there. Yes, it unfortunately was on a Virtual Boy. Now, also the way it was set up, it wasn't really that comfortable because the table we had it on was like, it was an odd size. It wasn't high enough where we can stand and play it, but it wasn't low enough where we can sit and play it.
I'm generally not a tall person, so that wasn't. I mean, I definitely felt that it was too low even for me, but it wasn't as major of an issue.
But that was your first time playing Virtual Boy. Period.
That was the first time I have ever even seen a virtual. Well, no, when I've seen yours, but I've seen one in action, sampled it. So my thought on
I do got to break mine out.
My thought on the matter of this. So I played about 5 minutes of Wario
Land, Virtual Boy Wario Land, and the idea is it's a platformer, but you can go back and forth.
It definitely was a demonstration of the Virtual Boy's depth perception abilities. And I think it was designed to demonstrate what the Virtual Boy can do. So I basically was in a cave and I walked up into the screen, into a 3D boss type fight, and where my timing was definitely thrown off. I definitely wasn't used to it.
Were you able to see the 3D?
No, there's definitely it was almost like a parallax 3D kind of depth.
It's a depth thing,
perception. It was definitely not virtual reality.
No,
it's definitely more of a 3D machine, and it tried to take advantage of the abilities of the Virtual Boy. Look, and it was well designed.
You can't fault him for trying. Yeah,
it was well designed to suit the needs of that system. The problem was the system itself is not it's not user friendly.
Not really. No, it wasn't. No.
And again, it maybe because it was I don't want to say ahead of its time because clearly the technology was always there.
There were 3D glasses on like the Master System
had excellent 3D.
Yeah.
Not too dissimilar, but Nintendo's 3D was awful.
No, I agree with you. But the games, the quality of games, that was the only
game
you played.
If that game was translated to Super NES in color and everything, I could see it working very well with Mode 7 and stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
So it tried to take advantage of the Virtual Boy, but it wasn't necessarily to be Virtual Boy. You know what I mean?
I totally agree with you. I totally agree. And I still do not understand why. I mean, it was only like 20-something games in the entire library. Why Nintendo has never released the Virtual Boy games on the Nintendo 3DS on the Virtual Console.
So
that would be amazing.
What they could do today with all the virtual reality glasses they have is Nintendo releasing something for the Switch and having that online to play.
Well, you have. I mean, I have the I have the Nintendo Switch VR headset, but it doesn't attach it. You still have to hold it, which in itself is fine.
Right.
I haven't really had a full chance to play it.
Oculus and stuff like that.
Forget that.
Yeah.
It was a handheld system. Put it on the 3DS. The 3DS is amazing 3D capability.
They could definitely.
Even though I don't
revamp
play
the
much in
games.
3D, but it has the ability. Nintendo, I know someone's got to be hearing this from Nintendo.
It all depends on price and cost. I would think if it costs Nintendo too much, knowing that it's not going to sell or get downloaded, you're going to be the only guy. Maybe
please,
five
they got
others.
games. They got games
I'm
on
only joking.
there. I'm saying,
yeah, I'm
they
joking,
have
dude.
Super Mario Brothers on Game Boy Color, which is a terrible version of the game, but that's available on.
I liked it.
But granted, I doubt they have the code anywhere. I'm sure, it's the idea of having to recode all of it to upload it. But I mean, that Mario Clash, Vertical Force.
Were there any third-party Virtual Boy games?
Tetris. That was more Japanese. Okay. That's the thing I want to talk about in a moment. But like Vertical Force is an amazing vertical shooter, which again took depth.
Took advantage of the system's abilities,
there's enemies on the top screen and enemies below you as well. You have to keep changing.
It was definitely an interesting effect.
What I got to play, though, the rarest of all Virtual Boy games, is called Jack's Brothers. It was only available in Japan.
That's what you played on Friday?
Yeah, because the Virtual Boy was basically region-free.
Right.
I got to play that. That was awesome. The game is very expensive, so luckily Game On had it. And it was a very fun, straightforward game. Just go around collecting keys, jump down to the bottom level, it comes at you.
So it just seems...
even Tetris was kind of fun on the Virtual Boy.
Then it seems the issue was the interface.
Yeah, it was.
You know, and
I don't want... And I'm sorry, it just... It's jabs at me every time. I'm tired of everyone complain about the system for its lack of portability, for the awkwardness of the visor, stuff like that. Stop complaining about the color. Stop complaining about the fact that it was only in red. Because guess what? For years, we were playing Game Boy in green.
That's what I was about to say. From my perspective, knowing what a Nintendo Boy quote unquote system was, Game Boy was green. This was red. That wasn't, and I came from the days of Game & Watch and those little football games where it was red dots on the screen. So that wasn't going to inherently bother me. I could see that bothering a younger crowd than us. Like I could see that, but that's not what bothered me. The issue with the system was its marketability. They couldn't sell it to other investors to make games for.
Well, not only that,
and it was just a clunky interface.
It was. I mean, look, and like I say, even back then when I bought it brand new, I brought it to Anthony's and he played it for 10 minutes. He's like, "This is terrible." Like his hate for the system, his dislike of the system. I wouldn't say hate. His dislike of the system is 100% accurate. It's true because he was like that from day one.
And that's fair.
I remember bringing the whole thing over to his house, setting it up. Like, take your glasses off. You have to play without glasses.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, you sample something and your wallet does your talking. You know, I don't think it ever, unless I was just jibing at my brother. We were competing Nintendo Sega. It never was really personal to me. You know, like I didn't hate the Virtual Boy. I just realized this is not something I would spend my money on. And it wasn't something that appealed enough to warrant an investment.
Now, and we're going to close on this. You know, me and Anthony talked about it before. How Hyperkin put out this cryptic photo right after the new year, saying it was a picture of like these lenses, red lenses on the bottom, projecting the number 2019. So it made me think, is Hyperkin putting out a clone Virtual Boy system? Which would be phenomenal. Because give and take anyone's opinions on the clone systems, if any system needs a clone system, it's a Virtual Boy, because the Virtual Boy is very delicate. Always has been, always will be. Very delicate system. You jostle it too much, something's going to break.
So if you have an interface that's a little more...
rugged. Also, I heard possibly people are starting to look into making homebrew Virtual Boy games, which I think would be sweet. Now, there's already been... The only one I know of is a Street Fighter 2 homebrew that works on the Virtual Boy.
I mean, my only thought is as long as they don't overestimate their market, you're making for a niche audience. It's a very... specific small subset of people.
But
So I guess Hyperkin would be the perfect people to do that because they are a niche kind of.
Their recent systems are really good. Look, I know their
controllers are excellent.
The controls are phenomenal. Yeah. When they started remaking the clone systems into their own, not like the Retron 5 is amazing. Don't get me wrong; it's their best version of the Retron.
Right.
They put out the Retron HD, which was like the NES clone.
I have it. Yeah.
Now, admittedly, that has some sound issues, and the games are a little slower than on a regular NES. Yeah. But from Super NES on for their clone systems have been amazing.
That's good to
hear.
Heard
the Genesis one is awesome, the Atari, and of course Super NES. So if they make a clone Virtual Boy system, and I think because how now the lore of the Virtual Boy, it's almost like people would want to play it.
Like a cult following.
Almost,
like a cult movie.
Exactly.
Like Tommy Wiseau of video games, right? I'm just joking. Ha ha ha. What a story, Larry. Ha ha. Hi, doggy.
I did not. Wait, what was it? I did not hit her.
I did not hit her. I did not do it. I did not.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Oh, hi, Mark. What's new with you?
And with that, folks, I think we're going to wrap it up.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, dude. What we should do, you know what? I'll bring that Retron 1 over.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll do an episode around it, because I have a few Nintendo games. You got a ton. Maybe we'll see what works better and what doesn't.
Absolutely.
That would be fun to do.
Well, I'm getting the Polymega. Hopefully it's coming in August, so that's going to
be...
If I can find it. I got to start collecting Sega CD and Saturn games.
That's probably going to be $100 disc, dude.
I'll take it. Yeah. It's all right. I spent more than that on
I'm just saying.
Shining Force 3, and I still need a instruction booklet.
On a last note, Fatal Fury Special was also very good on Sega CD.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm looking for Rage in the Cage. WWE Rage in the Cage.
That was cool, too.
All right. So, again, Mario, thank you very much.
Dude, it's been a pleasure. I love doing this.
This is awesome. Yeah. One more time, plug where they can find you.
You can find me on the Rough Cut on WordPress. Easy enough to find. I think that's what you got to put. Rough Cut Home Spot or something like that. I don't know. I should really get on top of my own addresses. You can find me at the Rough Cut on YouTube. And you could find me in the Citizen G show on Spreaker. And there may be an episode dropping within the next month. So stay tuned. I've got stuff coming. It's got stuff in the pipeline. A lot of my stuff takes a little reading, a little research sometimes, And I'll get content out very soon.
Awesome. And, of course, you can follow us. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes, Spreaker, anywhere you listen to podcasts. Yeah. Check us out on our YouTube page, Instagram, Facebook, all at Retro Gamers Podcast. Email us, email at the Retro Gamers Podcast. And, of course, check out all the other podcasts on the More family of podcasts. Talking More Wrestling, which is a bit seasonal nowadays, but that's all right. That's Saturdays, 6:05 p.m. Eastern, when I can drop it. The Yin and Yang Podcast is coming back. That's going to be every Friday. And the Better Half Podcast every other Wednesday. And with that, next week, Anthony will be back next week, and we'll be talking more games. And we will catch you right here next week on the Retro Gamers Podcast.